Okay, so here I am, and I'm about to do a novella that I wrote called The Mexican. This is maybe 40,000 words, so it's going to be the next 4 weeks in about half-hour installments. I hope you like it. I hope you'll please excuse me for my heavily bearded face, but we're up here in Little Canada, and it's cold as hell. So this is going to stay till sometime in spring when everything starts to melt. Hope you enjoy the story. We're going to start out with The Mexican, Part 1. Thanks. Mexico. Sunday night. I buried the Mexican just after sundown. I can't say much about the sort of man he was in life, but I can say that he was a strong man in death. The moon has led my way, and I'm on my way across the desert, through Mexico of all places. What did they say? Hide in plain sight? There I am going to be. I already passed the border, and once I find a little border town, I'll find a small town to buy gasoline enough so that I can reach South America. I played the events of the last week over and over in my head as I've driven. It still makes no sense to me at all. They say shit happens. Well, sometimes it does. And I tell myself that's exactly what happened here. Some shit decided to happen, and I just happened to be there. Is that a good way to look at it? An accurate analysis of the situation, as we used to say in group a few years back? Maybe. But I can't help thinking that sometimes I must be part of making that shit happen myself, because I find myself right in the middle of it too often. Last Saturday night, everything was fine in my world. Maybe a little boring. Whose world isn't at least a little boring, right? Tonight, I am burying one man and trying to count the people that wound up dead in the last week, and I have to admit I lost track. Was it 10? More? I am bone weary. I know what that means exactly now. I need sleep, but I can't stop for sleep. And even though I need it, I doubt my brain would shut down long enough for me to get it. I just need to keep driving. Last Saturday evening. It was early. I had nothing better to do, so I took a walk downtown just to take a look at the buildings, thinking as I walked how just a few short years ago I had spent almost all of my time down here, chasing a high, drunk, or both, and sometimes a third thing, taking a little comfort with the ladies. It all came back to me as I walked the streets. About 3 years of my life have been spent like that, from the day Lily told me goodbye until the day I woke up in the alley that runs down the back of West Broad, behind the Chinese restaurant. The back of my head had been lumped up with something, maybe the wall of the Chinese restaurant, or maybe by someone. Someone, I had decided, as I began to blink the cobwebs away and felt carefully with my fingers. A lump only, no blood, probably a closed fist. 2 feet away from me was a dead rat, a big dead rat, and a few even larger rats were recklessly on him. And suddenly, just like that, I was done. That gave me a clear message about the world, and I heard it. Of course, that didn't mean I got off scot-free. There were many little things I had done during my long slide, and it took time to fix those things. Rehab, jail for some bad checks I couldn't remember, bad teeth, health, bad ideas, depression, suicide, and finally a night where I felt strong enough to take a walk through the worst of my nightmares and see if I was truly over the drugs, the life, and the weakness that had led me there in the first place. So that is how I came to be there last Saturday evening, getting my feet wet, seeing how strong I was. Or was it? And it turns out I was strong enough for the temptation of the streets, but not for the bad habits I had picked up there. And that's what got me. I cannot believe it has only been a week since all this started. I had walked past the mouth of the alley twice, and both times I saw the old Ford sitting there in the deep shadows. I heard the soft murmur of its engine running. Some guy and some girl, I thought, or some guy with some guy, or some boy, who knows what. It was downtown. Shit like that happened all the time. They didn't call this place the meat market for nothing. But I thought about the second time that this guy must be trying to set a record. He'd been there for 15 minutes by my watch. Not that it was my business. All the same, 15 minutes is a long time for a trip, or to shoot up. 15 minutes could bring a cop. In the street world, it was just way too long for almost anything. In 15 minutes, you could get your thing on, your drug of choice, your sex of choice, cop that stolen watch and be a half mile away, and have forgotten all about that last little space of time. So I was the guy still there. And that was the street part of me that was not gone. The street part of me that was still looking for trouble. And I found it. The third time by, which was just a few minutes later, I was too curious. My evening had brought me some excitement. The drugs, I could see the flow all over the avenue. Easy to see if you knew what to look for. The ladies were calling too. I knew what that was about. I didn't look at them like they were whores or something less than human. There was a line I couldn't draw. I had confused many times, so I came back fast to see what this was. That Ford was calling. That's all. The ladies were calling too. I knew what that was about. I didn't look at them like they were whores or something less than human. There was a line I couldn't draw. Had confused many times, so I came back fast to see what this was. That Ford was calling. I had stopped at the mouth of the alley. Same Ford, an old one, like a classic. Nice shape, too. Maybe somewhere in the 60s, but I wasn't good with cars like that. I only knew old, classic, nice looking. Nobody around, of course. That didn't mean there was no one in the car. I hesitated for only a second, and then walked quietly down the alley, staying in the shadows as I went. As I stole silently up the driver's side of the car, I found the Mexican slumped over behind the wheel, blood dripping down the side of his head. What looked like a .45 on the seat beside him. Another guy was slumped over into the floorboards on the passenger side. That one was dead for sure. A large bloodless hole on one side of his chest. An even larger hole behind that shoulder, I saw when I reached over to move him. And why are you still here? A little voice in my head whispered. Why are you touching him? What are you doing? But I pushed those warning voices away and continued to look. There was blood and gore all over the seat on that side. The coppery stench of blood was thick and nauseating. Something else mixed with it, tugging at my brain. Blood and fear? Something like that. That was when the Mexican spoke, and all of that silence, it nearly made me jump out of my skin. Don't call the cops, and no police. His head came away from the wheel. He shook it and drops of blood went flying. I felt a drop hit my face, but I was still too stunned to move. Hey, you hear me, Blanquito? Hable inglés? No policía. He muttered under his breath. Dios Christos. He focused his eyes on me once more. What's the matter with you? I thought you were dead, I managed. I should have run. I chose to talk. Yeah, I get that a lot, but I ain't dead. He picked up the .45 from the seat, and before I knew it, it was in my face. Come around the side, Blanquito. Get Lopez out of the car. He waved the pistol when I moved. Lopez pretty much helped himself out of the car. When I opened the door, he spilled out into the alley, leaving a mess on the seat and a large smear of blood on the seat's back and the door panel as he went. Good, good, the Mexican said. Now get in the fucking car. No, this side. Come back around to this side. I can't drive no car, Blanquito. Dios. He waved the gun once more, and I moved, racing around the hood of the car to the door. The Mexican did a fair job of getting himself over into the passenger seat. I was glad it was him sitting in Lopez's blood, and not me, although I had been about to sit in it. I slid into the driver's seat. You got some kind of car? A truck? Something like that? The Mexican asked. I didn't have a vehicle, but my grandfather had had a truck. It was sitting in the garage in back of my house on Logan Street. That house had also been my grandfather's. They were the only two things, the house and the truck, that had survived those 3 years on the streets. Sort of, I said. Sort of? He looked around. Get this car moving. That's the first thing. You got a place close by? How does anybody sort of own a fucking car anyway? Yeah, I got a place, I said. I was afraid to answer, but more afraid of not answering fast enough. Let's get there, amigo. He slumped back against the seat. I shifted into drive, worried I might drive over Lopez as I went, and drove us out of the alley. What's your name? I asked. Never mind, Blanquito. Just drive the fucking car. The house was dark. I had thought to leave a light on, but somehow I had forgotten. I drove the Ford right into the garage, pulled the garage door back down, and helped the Mexican out. He looked over at my grandfather's truck. That's your sort of truck? Looks to me, man. Does it run? The thing is, it did run, and I had been working on it here and there. I like to tinker with things, and I had a lot of spare time to fill when I quit drugging, so I had turned it to the truck. It was an old truck, but I had in the back of my mind to fix it up and drive it, so I had started with an oil change and installed a new headlight on the driver's side, that sort of stuff, when I had the time. I nodded. No plates there. The Mexican nodded back. Don't worry about that. Got gas in it? Some. Enough to get you away. Ha, amigo. He laughed, and then clutched the side of the head where the blood still drizzled and spilled down the side of his face. Spat some blood from his mouth and looked back at me. Us, he said. Us. I saw an amazing thing as he spoke. The Mexican had a small blue hole just above the stream of blood, a hole from a bullet in his head. The blood just pulsed out of it as I watched. I wondered how he could even be alive. I switched the plates to the truck and left the Ford sitting in the garage. I unloaded 4 big suitcases from the trunk of the Ford into the bed of the pickup truck. The Mexican shoved 2 machine pistols under the front seat and stuffed a second pistol into his waistband. He had me stretch a tarp over the bed of the pickup truck and tie it off, and we were on the road. We headed into the night on the Arizona back road, out of the desert. The name of the place was Tonopah, Arizona. I had eased the truck up onto I-10, the tires bouncing over the broken asphalt. Not a big city, a town from the looks of it. Phoenix is close, 10, 15 miles maybe. I can't really tell from the map, I said. The gas station loomed out of the early morning gray, and I wheeled the truck under the roof that covered the pumps. I shut off the motor, and we both listened to the tick of the cooling motor for a few seconds. Coffee would be real nice, amigo, the Mexican said. No way do we want to go into Phoenix. Too dangerous. He yawned and then covered his mouth and laughed. Jeez, morning time. The wound in his head had stopped bleeding. A thin crust of blood covered the hole, making it look like just an ordinary scab to me. It made me wonder if I had been wrong after all, if it had really been no more than a flesh wound. The Mexican stepped from the truck. I opened my door and settled my feet onto the pavement. It wasn't just old pavement, I thought as I looked it over. It was gray, like it was completely washed out and used up. There was no black left in it. The Mexican stood slightly in front of the truck, his gun in one hand. The other hand was reaching for the machine pistol, which was just coming free of his shoulder. I shrugged the machine pistol the Mexican had given me from my own shoulder and into my hand before I really saw what had alarmed him. 3 men stepped out of the shadows of the open garage door. They were kids, I saw. At least not much more than kids. They walked slowly forward. The Mexican raised the rifle and pointed it at the lead kid. That's it right there, he said. He didn't scream it, sort of softly spoke it, I thought later, but the kid stopped in his tracks. You just walk into someone's place like this? Guns ready? The kid asked. He waited for one of us to answer, but I had no intention of talking, and the Mexican stayed silent. What's with the fucking guns? The kid asked, when it became obvious that neither of us intended to speak. Ours weren't aimed at you until you aimed yours at us, I said. I hope I sounded as cool as the Mexican had. Bullshit, one of the other kids said. You had it in your hands when I looked at you. That's why I got mine ready. I don't want to kill anybody today, the Mexican said. I looked at him quickly. You could tell just how serious he was. Maybe the kids didn't see that look in his eyes, but they should be able to piece it together from the blood-spattered shirt and the jeans the Mexican wore. It really don't matter to me, you know? Dead or alive. The world sucks either way. You just don't have to feel it when you're dead, the third kid said. His eyes were bloodshot. We had interrupted him while he was sleeping, see. Or he was using meth. He had that look, eyes twitchy, skin gray. He kept rubbing at his eyes, I saw. I think you're right. Can't matter if you're dead, puto, the Mexican said. Pretty funny. What did you just call me? So you know a little Spanish. Big fucking deal, the kid responded. I'm Mexican, so... Well, big fucking deal. Mexico's that way. He jerked one thumb toward the desert at his back. The Mexican leaned forward and spat on the ground. The kid squinted hard and then spoke again. Okay, a couple of badasses. But look, it's our town. We ain't the only ones here. You shoot, there will be 20 more here in seconds. Then everybody dies. The one in the back, the one with the sleepy eyes, stifled a yawn and reflexively raised one hand to his mouth as his eyes slipped shut for a split second. The Mexican shot the lead kid in that split second. I had the second guy a moment later. The third kid opened his eyes to a changed situation. Just give me a reason, the Mexican said. Any reason. The kid released the rifle he held, and it dropped from his hands to the pavement. He spun and looked off towards a ragtag collection of trailers that lined the dirt road in the back of the station. Johnny! He screamed. He turned back to Billy and the Mexican. Don't shoot me. I ain't done nothing at all. The Mexican shot him. A second later, the truck roared to life, and I spun the wheels hard, heading out into the desert that bordered the town. The Mexican bounced around the cab and smacked his head hard enough on the windshield to star the glass when the truck left the pavement at better than 50 miles an hour and hit the hard-packed dirt that lay alongside I-10. He swore in Spanish, but finally got his balance, swept one hand across his forehead, looked at the fresh blood, and cursed again. Behind us, 3 trucks had launched off the pavement and were running hard to catch us. Screw me, I said. I pushed the pedal to the floor. There was nothing else for it. The glass in the back window starred a second later as the Mexican rammed the wire machine pistol stock into it. Another hit and the glass fell out onto the pickup bed area. He raised the machine pistol and began to fire back at the trucks. A second later, a hole punched through the windshield to my left. I sucked a deep breath and mashed the pedal harder into the floorboard, feeling the old truck skate across the hard scrabble of the desert as we flew beside the highway. We have to get north. The other side of the highway, Tito. If they squeeze us south, we'll be in the goddamn desert, the Mexican yelled, above the scream of the engine. There's cars up there, I yelled back, on the highway. There are bullets down here, and they're gaining on us, the Mexican yelled back. They'll just drop off the highway soon and get us. Better sit down, I yelled. Just do it. Dios! He continued to fire out the back window. I turned the wheel hard right, and the truck lurched hard to the left, threatening to roll over as the center of gravity changed. It nearly did roll over before it hit the edge of the pavement, broke over, and then became airborne. It came within 10 feet of a fast-moving, sun-bleached car full of wide-eyed kids, and then it plunged off the other side of the highway so smoothly that I couldn't believe it had actually landed. I skimmed past the edge of an old wrecked truck abandoned years ago as I fought for control of the wheel, and missed it by mere inches. I heard the scream of rubber up on the highway as the car locked up its brake just before the tires bit into the hardscrabble and once again mashed the pedal to the floor. Nearly broke my neck slamming into the ceiling, the Mexican yelled. He fell silent. He started. but an explosion from the highway stopped the words. "You hit that fucking truck," I screamed. "Has to be." "Keep it floored, amigo. Keep it floored, 'cause there was 3 up there." He stayed where he was, staring out the back window, knees driven into the seat top. My eyes strayed to the rearview mirror, empty, and then snapped back to the road. I watched the hard-packed earth fly by. "Roads coming up, like dirt roads," I said. I had no sooner said that than the truck hit the slight rise and flew across it. "Back roads, looks like," the Mexican said. He was trying his best to read a map as the truck bounced and tilted. One hand clutching the seat back held him in a somewhat stable position as he looked at the roads. "Looks like all dirt roads, back roads, and then it falls away to nothing. Just keep it pointed at the mountains in the distance." He turned completely around and sat down with the map in his lap. "Must have hit the truck or each other. Whatever it was, I don't think they'll feel like coming after us again." I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, laying my guard down. I said nothing. The Mexican went back to reading his map. "Start breaking left," Blake, he thought. "There's a river. No, maybe some sort of waterway, not a river. Too straight. It ends and then picks up again a few miles later. We can get through and into the desert from there." He looked at the map for a few more minutes. "Maybe 20 miles or so. Just run right by I-10 and you should be good." He turned and peeked over the back seat once more. "We're leaving a lot of dust." I looked over at him. The head wound was seeping again, and a new cut welled blood just above one eyebrow. Probably when he hit the roof. "We got to figure this out, too. I mean, we're going backwards, back to where we came," the Mexican said. "I could loop out deep and then swing back," I said. "Yeah, except in this desert you can see dust for miles. The dust is the problem." He leaned and looked at the gas gauge. "Less than half tank," he frowned. "We've got gas in the back," I threw in. "I'm thinking this, amigo. We hit that waterway or an outbuilding. Has to be something around here. We stop and kill the day, and then tonight we run across the desert to the other side of Phoenix. I got to meet somebody there." "Sounds like a plan," I agreed. "Okay, so take the next road that crosses, slow down to keep the dust down, and let's start looking for a place to hide out for the day. We've got enough gas in the back. We can get a long way before we need to find a station if we don't burn it up running in circles and backtracking." I slowed the truck and began heading to the right, east. "One of those towers will do. High voltage lines, something like that. But that will hide us if we drive right up to it," the Mexican said. We drove to a tower in the distance on a dirt service road that circled it. We continued to the north. I had my doubts, but I pulled the truck up close to the tower and shut it down. The silence held for a few moments. I rubbed at my eyes with a thumb and forefinger. "Jesus, I'm shot." He rolled down the window and spat a mouthful of blood onto the dry sand. "Poor choice of words," he said. He chuckled once more and then closed his eyes and sagged against the door. I swallowed hard, leaned against my own door, and watched the dust thicken as it settled under the battered hood of the old truck. Back on the road. I awakened just after sundown. The desert was already turning cold, the sweat from the day drying on my face and giving me chills. The Mexican sat stoically, smoking, flipping the ashes out of the open window. The head wound had stopped again, and the new gash over the eyebrow had crusted over. I shivered once more as I started the truck and drove out onto the service road. Funny place, the desert. Boiling hot all day long, yet extremely cold at night. I drove as he gave me directions. We stopped just before dawn at a gas station in the middle of a small desert town on the other side of Phoenix. The Mexican directed me past the dimly lit islands and over to the side of the station in the shadowy sidewalk. I saw that there was a big hound sleeping in an open bay doorway on one side of the garage. On the other side, a thin man with long, greasy black hair was turning wrenches on an old Plymouth. He glanced up, nodded, and I nodded back as we pulled around the side of the station and parked in the shadows. There were payphones bolted to the side wall, just past the men's room door. an oddity in almost any city, but apparently rural desert towns were an exception. A young girl with black hair, her back to us, was talking. She glanced around, her eyes wide as we pulled in. Then she turned away and continued talking. I had thought that payphones were a thing of the past, but I had also thought gas stations were a thing of the past too, come to think of it. Get the chica off that phone, the Mexican told me. He waved the gun from the seat, and I opened the door and stepped out quickly. She was waiting on me. Fuck you, Blanco, this is my fucking phone. Her face was unreadable, dark mahogany, in the sparse light at the side of the station. I turned back to the car, but the Mexican was watching me. He waved the gun and shook his head. Listen, I tried again. I'm talking to my boyfriend, she said in an angry whisper. What? Some asshole, some Blanco, she told the phone. I reached out and took the phone, held it to my ear. Nothing but the wah, wah, wah of a broken connection. I took the phone and hung it up. She turned on me, but whatever she intended to say flew away when she spotted the Mexican sitting in the open doorway of the car with a gun pointing at her. She clenched her jaw shut and stepped away into the shadows at the back of the lot. I helped the Mexican to the phone. Machado, you watch that bitch. See where she goes, what she does. He ran about $6 worth of change into the phone, and then he just stood there, leaned against the wall, panting hard for what seemed like 10 minutes. Blood dripped on his shoes, impossibly loud in the silence. I backed up and watched the girl, who was hanging in the shadows at the back of the lot. He finally began to speak in a stream of Spanish words so heavily accented and fast that I could make no sense of anything he said. Not even the gist of it, and I was usually pretty good when it came to Spanish. I heard a lot of it in my life on the streets, and it was best to know what was being said, what might be coming your way. Play dumb like you don't understand, and it would usually spell all kinds of information. The girl walked up and stood next to me, as if waiting for permission to speak. I looked at her, young, but not as young as I had thought she was at first glance. She was probably somewhere south of 30, but maybe only a little south. There were hard lines around her eyes, slight pouches under them. Her skin, in the sodium lights of the lot, was a soft brown that seemed flawless and made her look so much younger at that first glance. Either way, she was beautiful. My eyes fell to her breast and just as quickly rose back up, but she had caught me. A smile rested on her mouth. She leaned in close. What's up with your friend? She asked. I laughed. Really? That's what you want to know? Well, he ain't my friend. He'd as soon kill me as you. You should get the fuck gone. Disappear. Know what I mean? The Mexican coughed and then went back into a brief choking spell before he recovered. He sprayed blood from his mouth and then resumed talking. Blood from the bullet wound in his lower chest was smeared all over the wall he was leaning against. I need some help, she said. I ain't the one you need it from. I meant what I said. He ain't my friend, and he'd kill me as soon as you. The Mexican glanced over. The girl stayed silent for a few moments. Cat, she said at last. Billy, I allowed, but this ain't the time. Well, when is the time? I'm stuck here. I need a ride. That creep fuck in the garage wants me to... She stopped abruptly. I shook my head and paid attention to the Mexican, who kept cutting his eyes to me. Pissed off, I was sure, because the girl was hanging so close. I stayed silent. Well, where are you from? Here? I asked. Alabama, she said. I shook my head. She was a long way from home, or hope of home. The Mexican's conversation was winding down. I could tell because he spoke less and less. He finally went on a long coughing spasm, spat out a few more quick streams of Spanish into the phone, and then dropped the handset. He came staggering out the wall and back to the truck. I rushed to help him back in, the girl right at my side. He was breathing hard. We got to kill some time, find a place. He looked at the girl. What the fuck is it you want, Anita? He showed her the 45 just in case she hadn't seen it. She turned and looked at the back of the lot, motioning with one hand as she did, and spat out a stream of Spanish that was lost on her. At the end, I caught the gist of it. She was asking for a ride. I expected the Mexican to tell her no, maybe even shoot her. The guy had a bullet hole in his head and he was walking around. What could you expect from a guy like that? When she finished, she planted her feet firmly and locked eyes with him, occasionally turning to include me in her stare down. Okay, manita. You're a little... What the fuck is it? He turned to me smiling. Loca. Crazy, the girl said, but she laughed. Yeah, you got that right, manita. Loca. Big crazy. Alabama loca. You think I'm out here playing games in the middle of the night? These men's, compadres, they want to kill me. He raised a gun. Maybe you too. She said nothing, but the smile left her face. Okay. He waved her up into the truck to the middle of the seat. We travel on our time. Means you stay where we stay when we stay. We move along, you move along. He shrugged. You get where you get when you get there. No special stuff, manita. You want to get out, you get out. He turned on me. Cat, loca, means she's crazy. She's from Mexico, by way of Mississippi, by way of Alabama. He shook his head but stopped and held it briefly. She smiled slightly and nodded her head. I was appalled. I never expected that, but I just nodded myself like anyone had to ask my permission. I was tempted to clean off the wall, pick up the handset and put it back on the phone. Someone might see that, but instead I helped into the truck and then wheeled out of the parking lot. The Mexican passed Cat the dirty, creased map. Make yourself useful, chica. Find us a place to kill a few hours. The moon was fully up. The desert seemed almost as if it were lit with streetlights to me. I found a dirt road and followed it to a concrete building that was part of a complex of buildings in the middle of nowhere. The place didn't look like it had much going for it. A collection of buildings in the desert. A few trucks sitting around. Company trucks of some sort, painted the same colors, but no name on them. I passed through the complex, slowly on the dirt road that fed it. No guards, no cameras, no fencing, nothing. Spooky, Cat said from beside me. Her voice startled. I glanced over. The Mexican was sleeping, or maybe dead. How long could you live with a bullet hole in your head? As if he could read my mind, the Mexican opened the eye that faced me and winked. I looked away quickly, back to the complex, taking a longer, harder look. I turned around and drove through it more slowly. Nothing again. I stared out into the night. The moon was moving past the halfway point. There wouldn't be much of the night left. I looked over at the Mexican where he sat, head back, breathing slowly. At some point, the bleeding had stopped again. I looked back around at the buildings, maybe 10, unless I had miscounted. A dozen trucks and cars set around the buildings. A large building that was probably a garage, or at least appeared to be. Doors down, a side door closed. I drove slowly, circling the building. A back door, also closed. Maybe, I thought, the back door would be the best way inside. I pulled back out front of the building, shifted the truck into park and left it running. The door was 15 feet away. I waited a second and then leaned across to the Mexican. Hey man, I got to go. You hear me? Nothing. His breathing didn't change and it scared me. I took his machine pistol and handed it to Cat. Cat sighed, fingered the safety on it to make sure it was off, and then we stepped from the truck. The door chucked closed behind us nearly silently. Silence, or at least it seemed silent for a moment. The desert wind reached my ears, just a soft rising and falling of sighs as it slipped around the buildings, nothing else. I made myself search the entire area once more with my eyes, and then we walked to the door, took one more look back at the truck, turned the knob, and stepped inside the building.